Approximately at midnight, sleep finally took pity on the hegemon. With a spasmodic yawn, the procurator unfastened and threw off his cloak, removed the belt girded over his shirt, with a broad steel knife in a sheath, placed it on the chair by his couch, took off his sandals, and stretched out. Banga got on the bed at once and lay down next to him, head to head, and the procurator, placing his hand on the dog's neck, finally closed his eyes. Only then did the dog also fall asleep. The couch was in semi-darkness, shielded from the moon by a column, but a ribbon of moonlight stretched from the porch steps to the bed. And once the procurator lost connection with what surrounded him in reality, he immediately set out on the shining road and went up it straight towards the moon. He even burst out laughing in his sleep from happiness, so wonderful and inimitable did everything come to be on the transparent, pale blue road. He walked in the company of Banga, and beside him walked the wandering philosopher. They were arguing about something very complex and important, and neither of them could refute the other. They did not agree with each other in anything, and that made their argument especially interesting and endless. It went without saying that today's execution proved to be a sheer misunderstanding. Here this philosopher, who had thought up such an incredibly absurd thing as that all men are good, was walking beside him, therefore he was alive. And, of course, it would be terrible even to think that one could execute such a man. There had been no execution. No execution. That was the loveliness of this journey up the stairway of the moon. There was as much free time as they needed, and the storm would come only towards evening, and cowardice was undoubtedly one of the most terrible vices. Thus spoke Yeshua ha-Nozri. No, philosopher, I disagree with you, it is the most terrible vice. He, for example, the present procurator of Judea and former tribune of a legion, had been no coward that time, in the Valley of the Virgins, when the fierce German had almost torn Rat Slayer the giant to pieces. But, good heavens, philosopher! How can you, with your intelligence, allow yourself to think that, for the sake of a man who has committed a crime against Caesar, the procurator of Judea would ruin his career? Yes, yes, Pilate moaned and sobbed in his sleep. Of course he would. In the morning he still would not, but now, at night, after weighing everything, he would agree to ruin it. He would do everything to save the decidedly innocent, mad dreamer and healer from execution. "Now we shall always be together," said the ragged wandering philosopher in his dream, who for some unknown reason had crossed paths with the equestrian of the golden spear. "Where there's one of us, straightway there will be the other." Whenever I am remembered, you will at once be remembered, too. I, the foundling, the son of unknown parents, and you, the son of an astrologer king and a miller's daughter, the beautiful Pila. Yes, and don't you forget to remember me, the astrologer's son, Pilate asked in his dream. And securing in his dream a nod from the enserried beggar who was walking beside him, the cruel procurator of Judea wept and laughed from joy in his dream. This was all very good, but the more terrible was the hegemon's awakening. Banga growled at the moon, and the pale blue road, slippery as though smoothed with oil, fell away before the procurator. He opened his eyes, and the first thing he remembered was that the execution had been. The first thing the procurator did was to clutch Banga's collar with a habitual gesture, then with sick eyes he began searching for the moon and saw that it had moved slightly to the side and turned silvery. Its light was being interfered with by an unpleasant, restless light playing on the balcony right before his eyes. A torch blazed and smoked in the hand of the centurion rat-slayer. The holder of it glanced sidelong with fear and spite at the dangerous beast preparing itself to leap. "Stay, Banga," the procurator said in a sick voice and coughed. Shielding himself from the flame with his hand, he went on, "Even at night, even by moonlight, I have no peace." "Oh, gods! Yours is also a bad job, Mark. You cripple soldiers." Mark gazed at the procurator in great amazement, and the man recollected himself. To smooth over the unwarranted words, spoken while not quite awake, the procurator said, "Don't be offended, centurion. My position, I repeat, is still worse." "What do you want?" "The head of the secret guard is waiting to see you," Mark reported calmly. Call him," the procurator ordered, clearing his throat with a cough, and he began feeling for his sandals with his bare feet. The flame played on the columns, the centurion's caligate tramped across the mosaics. The centurion went out to the garden. "Even by moonlight I have no peace," the procurator said to himself, grinding his teeth. Instead of the centurion, a man in a hood appeared on the balcony. "Stay, Banga," the procurator said quietly and pressed the back of the dog's head. Before beginning to speak, Afranius, as was his custom, looked around and stepped into the shadow, and having made sure that, besides Banga, there were no extra persons on the balcony, he said quietly, "I ask to be tried, procurator. You turned out to be right. I was unable to protect Judas of Kiriath, he has been stabbed to death. I asked to be tried and retired." It seemed to Afranius that 4 eyes were looking at him, a dog's and a wolf's. Afranius took from under his chlamys a purse stiff with blood, sealed with 2 seals.